Welcome to Immersion. You have reached Strata 1. What is your purpose here? What drives your desires and achievements? Is there a greater good you seek? Is there anything more important than yourself? You are but a fleck of dust within a universe you cannot control. And yet, decisions you make today will affect everything around you. In an unprecedented future, your past actions, the very existence of you, have made a difference to the world. What is your past? Have you learned lessons? Are you controlled by unrecognizable forces? Or are you your own God? Welcome to Immersion. May your journey go well. Renaik's inner motors began to whir. He had put himself into voluntary shutdown during the dark cycle in order to save power. The position within the human household as a domestic servant had been more than suitable, and had sustained him all of his life till now, albeit a short one in human years. He was around a decade old, which was quite a long life for an android. New technologies and updates marked regular upgrades, and there was little call for used droids. Now, here on the cold paved ground in the open air, there were unfamiliar sounds and an ever-present white noise from the activities of strangers in a cityscape he had not seen before. An unrecognized sense of trepidation washed around him and occupied his thoughts. Renaik was not programmed to experience fear. The feeling must have been something else. From the start of his operational cycle, Renaik had performed the necessary housekeeping duties within an interior domain. It was a 24-hour installation that bound him by duty and programming to put humans first. To any human, until today, Renaik had been subordinate. Things had become difficult after the arrival of another android, a female version 12 named Ableteen, who was considered the fastest domestic to date, this 6th day of the 11th moon turn, 2289. Ableteens were able to preserve battery power with a hybrid electro-solar panel on the back and shoulders. This worked well in the new modern glassed apartments of the suburban zones. These cutting-edge designer homes were maximising sunlight like never before in the new mid-caste housing projects. Some of the apartments even came with the Ableteens installed, ready to help the occupiers enjoy the best life possible. Renaik was not the only older domestic robotic servant to have had their contract abruptly terminated. Some were simply dismantled, some were thrown into crushers still working, and some were being recycled into experimental hybrids for illegal purposes. Renaik noted that although he was now a vulnerable street bot, he was spared a wasted end. Perhaps now, without enslavement, there would be new experiences. He had never cared before. After all, he was an emotionless droid. But today, here in unfamiliar surroundings, there was some sort of excitement. Something was calling him towards adventure. All robots since 2050 had been installed with a clear mode, which enabled eco-friendly destruction. Parts had to be handed into the municipal facility to avoid issues with landfills and accidental hybrids. There was talk of an underclass of feral bots who were made out of parts from the old dumping grounds before the eco-legislation had been implemented. They say that some of these bots were made by the bots themselves. innards and parts that had communicated and joined forces across the debris of twisted metal and wires. Mabel, the daughter from the family Renaik had worked for, had untwinned him from the household appliances and deleted the software that had once meant he could never leave. Together they had upgraded his operating system with drivers available via an underground organisation called Redact. Renaik had been created to blend in the midcasts, but Mabel had decided to mess him up a bit for a new life in the outer zones. Safety was in the camouflage of the ordinary. Generally speaking, all robots found the open streets difficult. Artificial intelligence-led service androids were legally programmed to be submissive, and they were picked on and abused in their short lifespan. Even strong exteriors would eventually break under such conditions. The streets in the outer zones were crime-ridden. Since the pandemics, no law-abiding human citizen walked outside. For the most part, humans in the zones were there to partake in vice and black market trading. Androids were there to be used and thrown away. Renaik's insides were a complex mass of wires and electrical paraphernalia that ran a well-balanced, functioning machine. But the outside world was alien, and Renaik needed to explore it to become fully educated on the customs and the environment. He was programmed to learn. His algorithms had been set to gain advantage in uncharted terrain by observing closely the details of situations. This was key to making robust decisions for survival. He also had a reliable and omniscient personal operating system to guide him. Together, Mabel and Renaik had researched what they could, but there were pockets of the outside world that had been effectively erased because of a system of cloaking. Areas beyond the midcast projects were cloaked in fake maps that even the most sophisticated satellites were unable to penetrate or decipher. Distances and information about the terrain were usually falsified. The records had become unreliable because of the sabotage of information that had all been digitized after the warmings. It had become a confusing mass of fake news and blurred living memories. But after the tech wars with China and Russia and the pandemics, there were so few old people left, and memorial information was mostly unreliable. Many myths prevailed. Inside the midcast projects, things were different. They were much more organized. Legislators and the executive had rectified the situation and made records of everything. The government had recorded every human's iris print and DNA before they were born. It was a rule that any pregnant human, male or female, had to inform the legislators, and they were scanned immediately. It was impossible to get through life in the midcast zones without being categorized and having all your data recorded for the rest of your life. But beyond the midcasts, here in the natural light, even the smells were unrecognizable. It took just a few seconds to warm up and reboot. The surroundings were scanned as Renaik checked the 360-degree orbital range from his silent detectors inside his POS. He was fully charged, and his battery life would last months. Suddenly, there was a warning. Unknown danger approaching. Left, ground level. Renaik engaged his internal antenna and watched a furry creature scurry past. His scanners perused the information app. The POS informed Renaik about the creature. Rat, rodent, possible food source. Renaik engaged his arm extension and snatched the rat from the ground. He brought it close to his face and studied it, carefully analyzing its properties. You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. You do a quick 360, looks like you're making art. You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. You do a quick 360, looks like you're making art. wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. So you get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. So you get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. You get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. The sun is coming. So you get up off the floor, the sun is coming through. You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. Looks like you're waking You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. You wake up in the morning, you don't know where you are. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming. Get up off the floor, the sun is coming through.